Let's check out today's conversation. Mike sits down for a special live audience recording with agency owner Stephanie Poe. We get to follow along Stephanie's journey of resilience and mental toughness, starting with her upbringing as a military kid.
We moved that summer between my junior and senior year, and it was awful.
To risking it all to make more of her career.
I just knew that I couldn't stay there. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that I couldn't stay there because I wasn't going to miss every part of Liam's childhood.
To finally listening to her inner voice.
There was something just kind of innately that said, you started this, you have committed to this, you're going to figure it out.
All of this coming up next on this special edition of the Level Up Lifestyle.
Thank you. And welcome to the Level Up Lifestyle podcast. We're coming to you live from the venue in Globe Life headquarters in McKinney, Texas. We got a live studio audience here. So excited. And most importantly, our special guest, Stephanie Poe. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here today.
We're so excited to have you here. So as you know, Level Up Lifestyle, all about talking about your journey, where you've been, where you're going. Yeah. How did you get there? You got a great story, and so excited to share it. For those that are watching or are listening, maybe kind of wondering what was all that noise. We've done this one time before where we have at Globe Life headquarters a leadership academy. We call it Globe Life University. Mm-hmm. So we've got over 100 people here on site. These are our newest level of leaders. So excited about them. We bring them in and give them 3 days of development, helping them build their skills to be better leaders for their agency and the people that they have back home. So we figured what better way to cap off 3 action-packed days than let's just film a podcast in front of them. Why not?
Why not?
So that's what we have going on here. It's really exciting to be able to share this with them as well. But this is all about you. So Stephanie, let's jump into it, okay?
Perfect.
So tell us about yourself. Where were you born? Born and raised? Childhood? What was that? What was that like? Growing up, Stephanie?
Growing up, Stephanie. So I was born and raised in North Carolina.
Okay.
My mom.
So that's where the every now and then you get a little.
There's a little accent,
a little southern there. It's not Indiana, it's not Arizona, so it's North Carolina.
It's a little southern. Yeah, okay. Born and raised. My whole family is still there. Okay. So my mom's side of the families are still North Carolina. My dad's side of the family is more of like Thomasville, Piedmont region. So like High Point, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, like that kind of area. So I was born and raised there, lived there my entire life. I had a really good childhood. What
were the kind of things that you did as a kid growing up? I mean, so is that in is it kind of mountainy there, or is it more, are you doing outdoor stuff? Are you doing athletic stuff, or what? I mean, what are you doing as a kid growing up?
So it's not very mountainy there. You can travel, of course. You can go to different areas for mountains, but we would always go to the beach. But growing up, I was a dancer. Okay. So I started when I was about 3 in ballet and jazz and hip hop and all of that kind of fun stuff. I also was in choir. I like to sing. I was also in theater. So I was like kind of the always want to be on stage performance kind of girl. Yeah.
So we are right up your alley here. We got the live studio audience thing. This is, exciting for
jam.
You. Yeah.
This is my jam. I really wanted to be at some point in my life, I wanted to be a Radio City Rockette.
Really?
In my hometown.
When were you wanting to do that? Is this like early on or?
I would say somewhere in like middle school, high school. Okay. My town had a dance studio, and the owner of the studio was a Radio City Rockette. Okay. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. So I got to learn and train from her whenever she was in town. Yeah. Her family kind of ran it because she, lived in New York. But I got to see firsthand what that looked like, and I thought, I am going to do that. That's what I want to do. And then I don't know what happened. I ended up not doing that. I went a different route. So I went
agency owner's a little different.
Than Rockette. The kick lines.
Somewhat close, I'm sure. There's some similarities, but not much.
In the South, you bake a lot. You learn how to cook, you learn how to bake. So I remember being just so little. I mean, I couldn't even see over the kitchen table, sitting with my great grandmother, and we would bake biscuits from scratch.
Okay.
So I probably could bake biscuits from scratch by the time I was like 3 or 4.
Wow.
And she would eat the top of them and I would eat the bottom because I liked the crispy bottom. So that's what we did. And then I would go over to my other grandmother's house on my mom's side, and we would bake cakes. So every time I was there, I would go rummaging through her cabinets and figure out what I'm going to bake. So it's kind of like a prized possession in the South. Like if you can bake a cake from scratch, like you're going to do good things with your life.
That's a level.
There's levels.
Leveling up is baking is one of the,
It is.
Didn't know that. My youngest daughter can make cinnamon rolls.
That is really hard to do.
Well, she takes them out of the container and then it pops and then you put them in the oven.
I bet they're
But she is like, I'm like, hey, cinnamon rolls, done, got it. She knows the process, 3 steps, it's easy.
So on Saturday morning, you're like expecting those every day. You're ready.
I need to wake up and smell that.
I love it. So that's what I did. I was very proud. I could bake a red velvet scratch cake from the time I was like 11 or 12. So that was like really big deal.
So are your friends, like, are you the only one that can kind of bake at this level, or is it like everyone's doing, or like your friends are like, hey, we're going to have a sleepover. Do you mind making like a 3-tiered red velvet cake over and they'll bring the Dr. Peppers? I mean, how did that work?
That actually never, ever occurred.
No? Okay.
No. But you know what it does? I have an 11-year-old, and it does occur with him. He has been baking with me since he was teeny tiny.
Okay.
So he does get asked to bring cookies and brownies and like all kinds of crazy things. Yeah. But not maybe they didn't know. Maybe they didn't know. They didn't know about me then.
Yeah.
So so I did that. I loved baking. I went to my freshman year of college. I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro.
Okay.
And I thought that I wanted to be a teacher, is what I thought. I really like kids. I thought that's what I wanted to do. So I was there for 2 years and I did some student teaching with kindergartners.
Wow.
And I learned very quickly I didn't like that. And I really didn't like the pay for that.
Yeah.
So I was sitting in an ethics class one day and I called my dad and I said, I don't want to do this. My dad, that was like paying for my college.
Yeah.
This is not what I want to do. I don't want to do this. And he said, well, what do you think you want to do? And I had heard about Johnson & Wales University, that it was a culinary and pastry school. I just kind of heard about it.
Yeah.
And I said, I think I want to go to pastry school. And he said, well, why don't you do that? And I said, well, do I have to stay in class? And he said, no, go home. So
He's really supportive. To have that, because I don't know, there's, how all fathers would feel when their daughter calls them, say, you know what, I'm going to change it up and we're going to do this. I want to
be here.
But if you go back, so like when you're in high school, right, were you thinking you're not really sure, or did this just kind of happen at that moment? You're like, I really want to get into pastry, because you had to move when you're in high school too.
I did move. So I, in high school, was not that girl. Like, I know I'm pretty cool now, but I was not back then. Okay. Like my mom, I love you. I was just going to watch this.
Sure.
She gave me
give mom a shout out here if you want.
She gave me this haircut. It was like so short with like these bangs that were like over here and like that. I don't know. That wasn't the thing. It was bad. It was bad. So I was
Isn't that kind of a formidable thing that every child needs to have their parent give them a bad haircut?
It is. It's like a rite of passage.
I think so. My dad did that to me too. I remember. And
it's tragic.
It was right before a school play.
Oh, no.
And it was, I still remember that to this day.
And there's probably like footage, right? Because
I'm sure.
It was a school play.
I'm sure, yeah. And a little VHS tape somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't that girl. I had like a small group of friends. I tried to stay under the radar. I stayed over here. If somebody spoke to me, I'm like, hello. Like that was me. So my dad is the most amazing, wonderful man. And
what did your dad do for work while you were growing up?
So he's retired now, active duty in the National Guard. Okay. I think 38 years or something like that. So I was very fortunate growing up that we just stayed in North Carolina until my senior year of high school. So he applied for a job with the Pentagon and with the Arlington National Guard Bureau out of hundreds and hundreds of people across the nation. Sure. I think he just kind of like half-heartedly put his resume, out there.
That's probably a status position. Yeah. It's a big deal to have that.
Kind of a big deal. Yeah. He retired as a sergeant major. So,
okay. Yeah.
I mean, he's a little bit of a big deal.
Yeah.
So, he ended up getting this job. So my senior year of high school, we moved from North Carolina to Washington, D.C.
So what was that like?
It was awful.
Yeah.
It was terrible. It was awful. I remember, I'm not like the it girl, but I was very good at dance. So my junior year, I made the varsity dance team, which was kind of like a really big
North Carolina.
Deal in North Carolina. Yeah. And so then my senior year, I had to give that up because we were moving. I had a small little circle of friends and I had a boyfriend at the time. And so we moved that summer between my junior and senior year. And it was awful. I sat on my bed in our house. We lived on base, maybe like 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. And I sat there the whole summer on my bed. I wasn't allowed to have a cell phone. You can imagine a very protective Army dad.
Sure.
But I remember sitting there writing letters to my friends and my boyfriend, and I just letters and letters and letters. And that's all that I did all summer. It was.
Were you living on base in North Carolina, or you were in a normal? You were in a normal. You were in your like a residential house, and then So now, you talk about culture difference here. You are Southern girl, baking with grandma. That's kind of your thing. And then now, in a very formative time of your life, the last year of high school, you're kind of rooted up. You're living in a different environment, living on a military base, in a place where the culture is different. So, do you feel like that moment stuck with you later on? Because we're talking about transitions that you've had in your life. Do you think it empowered you to do better, or how did you get through those? What were you thinking?
So I couldn't see it at the time, but that point in my life was a very pivotal moment, and it's got me to where I am. If we wouldn't have moved out, I would have, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with this at all, but I would have stayed in that hometown, probably married my high school sweetheart. I would have fit into that category, which is okay. But what I didn't realize at that time, that's not what I wanted or needed in my life. So I went to my very first day of high school. Now I'm coming from
in Virginia,
Mount Vernon High School. It's like where George Washington lived. Kind of cool.
Okay.
So I'm coming from a school that has like maybe 500 kids total to my new graduating class has, I think, like 350 kids in the senior class.
Oh, wow.
So like huge change.
Yeah.
DC is like kind of one of the biggest melting pots here in the United States. So there's so many different cultures and just the immersion of things that I had never seen or experienced before. And so I went to my first day of my senior year, and it was an English class. And I went up, it was upstairs, and they had the tables kind of like set in a U. So it was more of like a conversational piece.
In my high school, they're like, don't talk.
Don't talk to anyone.
We do not want to hear you speak.
They're very like fast forward in DC land. But I just remember sitting there, and I was the only white American girl. I only spoke English, and hearing people say that they knew 3 languages, 4 languages, 5 languages, all of the places that they had traveled inside of the United States, but also outside of the United States, all of the countries that they had seen. I remember feeling about this big. Yeah. I just thought,
I can make you a red velvet cake.
I can make you a red velvet cake. Like, that's what I got for you. And so it kind of in that moment, I thought, I don't have to be that girl that I was in North Carolina.
Yeah.
I can be whoever I want. Nobody knows me here. Nobody knows that I'm this like shy, leave me alone, I like to dance kind of girl. Like I can do whatever I want. And so that's what I did. I
took it as an opportunity to reinvent yourself.
I did.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did. Yeah. And so, I made it a point to make friends with everybody that I could possibly make friends with. let's say like Mondays and Tuesdays, I would sit at the table at lunch with a whole bunch of cheerleaders and football players. And on Thursday and Friday, I'm with the theater kids. I was kind of like, I was just everywhere. I just said, I'm not going to be that girl anymore.
Yeah.
And I didn't know then what I was going to do with my life, but I knew it was bigger than North Carolina. I knew that.
So do you think that's helped you adapt to change later on?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I think running a business, moving across the country, all these things that we're going to talk about, those are big changing moments. And sometimes, maybe people are, I won't say fearful of the change, but it's just very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
and they don't want to put themselves in a position where they know they're going to have to make changes.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that maybe helped you? Okay, you can use change as a chance to reinvent yourself and be better for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even just the small task, like I remember that very first day going to lunch and not knowing a soul with 600 people sitting in the cafeteria. And I thought, okay, I've got two choices. I can just kind of shy away in the corner, or I can quite literally put myself in the center of the room. And that's what I did.
Sure.
I put myself in the center. I made sure that I was noticed in whatever shape, way, or form. So I took all of that experience as a time to adapt to the change, learn how to deal with the change while I was underneath the protection of my parents.
Yeah.
It's made everything that I've done so far that much easier.
Well, I think it's a great lesson though. And, I'm sure most of the people listening to this are out of high school, right? And so they're not going to have that type of a scenario, but I think that plays itself out in different aspects of people's lives.
Yeah.
And they don't really realize it. Like, here's a chance to just go into something and be very uncomfortable, reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
And level yourself up, right? So it's that mindset, I guess, of knowing that, hey, this isn't necessarily going to hurt you. It's going to make you uncomfortable, but it's going to make you better.
It's going to make you better. Yeah. I needed those skills. My dad jokes all the time. And he says, if I just wouldn't have taken you out, up to DC, you'd still be living at home. But obviously, like, he's happy for me, right? Just to be here with me. He tells me every time I see you can move home anytime you want. But yeah, I mean, yes, it shaped my life. It shaped who I am. I forced myself to change my mindset on how I saw the world, how I saw myself, things that I knew I needed to change and grow from. I didn't know, like I said, to the extent of what it was going to be until way later down the road. But there's no way I would have been able to move from North Carolina to the other side of the country in Phoenix if I didn't have some of those skill sets.
Yeah. That's great. So how quickly did you get out of Virginia then? Because it seems like you were there for 1 year and then you're like, I'm back.
I had a boyfriend. Okay, we had to go home.
Okay.
I did. So I was there for a year. And whenever I graduated, I went back home and I went to UNCG, left there. And then I went to Charlotte, and that's where I went to Johnson & Wales University, and I was accepted into their pastry school.
Okay.
So I have a full degree in baking and pastry of art and science.
Okay.
Full degree. So I'm classically trained in everything. I can do sugar show pieces, chocolates, French pastries, Russian pastries, you name it, I can do it.
I feel like every time I visited your agency, I'm missing out on something.
You're never getting treats. I know.
Yes,
I know. I need to do better. I need to do better. I will have people come in for an interview and they've looked me up and they'll say, so did you bring cookies in today? No, friend. No, friend. Here's a COB.
Yeah. You have an opportunity, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, just maybe. But yeah, so I love wedding cakes though.
Really?
Yeah, it's my favorite. I love everything about cakes, and that probably stems from making cakes with my grandmothers. But I love it. It's very challenging.
That has to be a really high pressure one, right? Because you can't mess that up and be like, oh, here you go. It looks great, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of components to it. Cake's not like the most stable thing in the world. So you're stacking like 50 or 60 pounds of cake on top of each other, just praying that it doesn't, there's systems, praying that it doesn't, collapse. It's very stressful. It's very high pressure. Moving it from your house to the venue, that's not fun. But you put it up, and there's something so magical about, I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
To this day, it's my favorite.
Probably a process that you have to stick to.
Yeah.
To make that work, because you can't wing it when you're making a wedding cake.
Not at all. There's a lot of planning that's involved. There's a lot of like kind of engineering and logistics that go into throwing one of these things up, right?
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that journey from graduating from Johnson & Wales and entering the pastry world to now, where is life taking you? What are you doing for work? What are your goals? What do you see yourself doing in the future? What's it like at this point?
So my senior year of college, I did a 5-star, 5-diamond internship at the downtown Center City hotel, Hilton Hotel in Charlotte. And I did that for 11 weeks. And right after I graduated, the hotel ended up letting go of their pastry chef.
Wow.
And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And they called me, all of 19, 20 years old, and said, hey, do you want this pastry chef position? Yes, absolutely. So I quite literally went from being a student to now I'm running this bake shop, which that was interesting because I didn't know what I was doing, right? Like I had no clue. I was a bartender before and a server before I, went into my big girl job. So I learned a lot. I had my own interns every 11 weeks, which was comical because
you were just an intern.
Yeah. And most of the most of the students, I was just in like classes with them, whether it was business classes or whatever. So it was very much the blind leading the blind. Like, do you know what to do?
Do you feel like maybe you got that pastry chef fired because you did so good as an intern? They were like, hey, you know what? I think we could like $8 an hour here versus what we're paying that person, entry level position, maybe.
I don't know exactly what happened to him, but I will say that I was very naive to the situation. Very naive. I didn't know what I could bake, but I didn't know anything as far as like running labor goes or truck orders or whenever I was there, they redid their entire restaurant and I got to come up with the pastry menu for this like multi-million-dollar establishment, which was really cool.
Wow.
I learned how to have really tough conversations and like I was 19 or 20. So having to fire someone at 19 or 20, I mean, it would make me cry. Like I would cry over it. So I learned a lot of those like hard skills, but to your point, they knew what they were doing. So one day I was sitting in my car and my cell phone was turned off. I couldn't pay the bill. And I thought, well, that's not good. Why am I in this executive level position? I have all of these responsibilities and I can't pay my cell phone. I was making $11 an hour.
Wow.
So I called my dad, as I always do, and I said, I don't know what to do, but I can't stay here. And he said, well, what you need to do is you need to go to the food and beverage director, who is a absolutely terrifying man. And you need to tell him you need to make more money or you're going to leave. So I got an appointment with the food and beverage director and I'd role-played this conversation. Role-playing, it's very important. I role-played this conversation with my dad over and over and over, like what I was going to say because I was so scared. My hands were shaking. Like it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, I need to make more money I'm doing this, and this. I have looked at comparables in the area. This is what somebody in my position is making. I'm
well prepared.
I'm very prepared for this conversation.
Yeah. And how old are you at this time?
Maybe 20.
Wow.
So, he looked at me and he like puts his hands on his hips and he says, well, Stephanie, we all need to make more money with his 6-figure income. So before I left his office, I put my 2-week notice in. Shaking.
Yeah.
They did it. And I went to Bob Evans.
So let's pause here because there's a couple things I want to hit on. First, coming into this role, you made the comment, you're now having interns where, 11 weeks ago you were an intern. These were people that you were in class with. So how do you make that transition from peer to leader in a very short period of time at a young age?
It's a mindset shift.
Okay.
You have to tell yourself what you need to accomplish, and then that's what you accomplish. I knew that I couldn't have the casual conversations that I was used to having.
As far as just
friendly.
Yeah, okay.
What are you doing? Let's go out. What are you doing this weekend? I knew somewhere deep down in there that I couldn't do that.
You had to have some type of separation.
Yeah, there's got to be a boundary there.
Yeah.
And I also knew that if I didn't do this well, that they were going to let me go. So I made sure that I kept my eyes on the target, which was whatever we had to get done for the day. There were always orders coming in, weddings coming in. We did probably about 3,000 plated desserts on a weekly basis that I had to throw out. I made sure that whatever needed to happen, the task got done. And I got very good at delegating.
Okay.
So I would have typically 2 to 3 interns every 11 weeks. And I just made sure that they knew what their task was. And kind of the same as what we do here, inspected their task. And that's just what it was.
And so that just came from out of a need that you can't do it all. And you kind of identified it, that here's a resource and use it.
Yeah. I can't do it all. And if I don't do it well, I won't be here for much longer. Yeah. It was really those two things.
Yeah. It's a great mindset to have it at such a young age as well, though. And then as you're learning all these other aspects of running a business, did they teach you that in school, or no? They're just teaching you how to bake. And then all of a sudden, here now you know how to bake, but I need you to run the business. So how do you transition there? And are you putting in extra time learning? Are you asking somebody to mentor you, or was it just like, hey, figure it out?
It was very much, hey, figure it out. I mean, we had business classes, but in these business classes, we took our Serve Safe certifications so that we could safely handle food. We did these things called cost cards. So if you opened a business, you would know like how to break down your costs and how to become profitable. Things that you need if you're going to open a business. But for something that was already established, no, absolutely not. I had no idea. All that I had was the experience of the 11 weeks that I was there. Now, luckily, I am, because of what I did in high school, I am a very put me in the middle of it. Let me talk to people and let me figure it out. And I am very good at making friends. So what I did in those 11 weeks, and I didn't know at that time that it would become useful to me, but I made friends with the banquets people. I made friends with the guy that would like make up the orders. I made friends with the salespeople. I was the girl that would go kind of here, I'd go around the hotel and, hey, Stephanie, hey, friend. Yeah. That's just who I was. And I just learned to use those resources. So anytime that I had questions or I didn't know anything, I knew who the person was. I would go to the person and say, hey, I need help with this. Help me figure it out. And it was kind of a village of a whole bunch of people that made sure that I did it correctly.
Do you think just being approachable as a person is a good skill to have?
Very good skill
to have in these types of scenarios. Do you think you were ready for that immediate leadership role when it was given to you?
Not at all.
So, sometimes people feel like I got to wait until I'm ready.
Yeah.
I don't think you're ever going to be ready.
Never.
But sometimes wanting to be ready holds people back. So did getting thrust into that help you do that? And how did you feel not being ready and then taking this role?
It's a sink or swim, right? Like you have to have your mindset set on, I am going to do it or I'm not. And, that's just something that's been always put into every fiber of my being is when you start something, you see it through to the end. It's just been ingrained in me. So whenever I accepted it, I had no idea really what I was doing, but I said, I'm going to figure it out. It was a choice. I'm going to figure it out. And I'm not going to let somebody else say, you're not good at this. If I walk away, I'm going to walk away because I want to walk away.
Okay, good. Yeah. Eventually you did walk away, right? So, you have the presence to stand for something, right? You have, like, hey, this is what I need. And he said, sorry. And you walked away. So
I did.
Bob Evans, here you come.
Bob Evans,
right?
Here we come. So at that time, I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I wanted to be a general manager. And then I wanted to be a regional manager because I thought managing like 12 locations was fun. I had a taste of like the top leadership role. So I really was kind of gunning for that. So I got hired on as an assistant general manager. And I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Of a specific restaurant.
Of a specific restaurant, yes, in a specific place. I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was driving to my location, which was in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which was an hour drive back and forth every day to hold this assistant general manager position.
Do you think, so again, you're 20?
Probably, right? 20, 21, somewhere in there.
And you're probably young for this type of a role?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And how important was the decision to just jump in to a leadership role at the previous position to then give you the confidence to take this role when people were probably saying, who's this young kid?
Yeah, I really relied heavily on my personality and my skills and what I had already accomplished to get me through those interviews. And I interviewed with this man named Tim, and he interviewed me probably 6 or 7 times before he brought me on board. I mean, it was just a back and forth, because I think that he was contemplating all of those things.
Sure.
But I was extremely confident. I had just been through, and I was with the hotel for about 3 years.
Okay.
So maybe 19
on your resume.
So maybe 22, 23.
Okay, still.
Yeah.
Still young.
He's still young, but I do have some skill sets. I have been in this leadership role. I have had to do the things that you're going to want me to do in the restaurant industry. And that's kind of my background was bartending and serving. So I know that industry pretty well. So eventually, after about those 6 interviews, he finally brought me on board.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That was good. So if you've not sorted it out, I'm a very loud vocal person. If you don't know, or if nobody knows that you want something, I promise you're not going to get it. So you've got to tell people what you want.
Yeah.
And somebody in Indiana heard me. I just want to be a GM. There's not very many Bob Evans in North Carolina, South Carolina. There's maybe like 4 or 5.
It's a Midwestern
thing. Yeah, it is. It is. And they're everywhere in the Midwest. Yeah. But
I grew up eating Bob Evans.
Yeah, it's like a thing. Yeah. It's like the Cracker Barrel of the Midwest.
Yeah.
It's such a good company. I didn't have anything. I still don't have anything bad to say about the company. It was a great company. It was so good that you just couldn't move up. The GM that I had started with the company baking biscuits at like 16, and he retired. I stay in touch with him. He retired at like 78. So
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good company. So somebody heard me in Indiana and said, well, that's fine. We just had a location that opened up. If you want to move, you can take the location. So that was no big deal for me.
You already done it.
I did it. Yeah. I did it. I knew that I could do it again. It wasn't a big deal. So I moved to Indiana, and I was the general manager in Noblesville, Indiana for maybe another 3 years, 2 or 3 years or so.
It was a suburb of Indianapolis, right?
Yeah, suburb of Indianapolis. Yep. And I did that for about 2 or 3 years. And then I decided to have a baby.
Okay.
Who is now 11.
Yeah.
And so that was a very pivotal moment in my life. I didn't know, do I want to stay on this path or do I want to do something different because I'm that mom?
How many hours are you working as the general manager?
Easily 70, 80. Easily.
Holidays, things like that, or really weekends, nights.
Yeah, their weekends are a joke. That's not a thing. Holidays, other than Christmas, like you're never going to get those off. And I was on this terrible thing called a mid shift. So I would go in at noon and I would get off at 8. So you go home, you eat, you go to bed, you sleep in the morning, you get up and you do it all over again. My days off were Monday, Tuesday. And it was fine without a family. I just knew that I didn't want to maintain that with Liam because I'm everywhere with him. If he's got soccer, I'm there. I'm the room parent in his school. I am on the PTO board. I do all the fundraising with the schools. I'm wherever that little blonde thing goes. That's where I'm at. At any given moment, you'll see him bopping around the office. I mean, he met you, I think, when he was like too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I just knew that I couldn't stay there. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that I couldn't stay there because I wasn't going to be able to be the mom that I wanted to be.
That is not going to give you the opportunity to live the life that you want to live.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. I would be a slave to that environment, and I would miss every part of Liam's childhood, and I wasn't willing to do that.
Okay, so what'd you do?
Well, I put my resume online like almost everybody else, and some, weirdo called me like our weirdos called all of you.
Right.
They're not weird, though. We like them.
We love all of them.
We love all of our people. His name was Pastor Ryan.
Okay.
And what's
his first name was Pastor, or he's a pastor? Or you never really
I don't know. The email quite literally said Pastor Ryan.
Okay.
That's how I never met Pastor Ryan.
Okay.
But that was his name. And so I had the interview set with Liberty National. Back then it was Torchmark. And then I had another interview set at the same time at 10 o'clock with either, I can't remember now, but it was either the Omni, Ritz-Carlton, the Westin.
Okay, like a nice hotel.
Like a nice hotel to be their executive pastry chef. I was going to go back down that realm. And so the day of my interview, I've got both interviews set, which is just very like...
Double booked.
This is uncharacteristic of me. Like, I got a checklist. We're checking it off. Like, this is not Stephanie. And I don't know. I didn't go to the interview with the pastry chef. I didn't go. I didn't even call them. I didn't even
They're still waiting?
They might be. Oh my God, if you're watching.
You feel guilty anytime you go into an Omni hotel.
I'm sorry, guys. So I go to the interview in Indianapolis, and you know how you change as you evolve, right? So Stephanie today would have never went to that interview. It was in, like the movie The Shining, and the hallway where the little girls are scared.
I've been to this office.
Yeah, it was great.
It's an older office. It's as the companies evolve, things have changed.
Yeah. There we have beautiful, beautiful buildings.
It's always good to look back on where you came from, so you can
where you are now.
Appreciate the journey. Yeah.
Yep. So I remember I'm walking down the hall with like all the doors, and I get to the door and I go in, and that space was probably smaller than our stage here, right? Yeah. And the desks were like lined up against the walls. And so you're sitting there with like 5 or 6 other people, like looking at a wall, right? And you're it's like, what is happening right now? And so I stayed, and my agency owner came out, and his personality was just so big, so inviting, that I went into the interview, and we have systems now in place. Systems. I just want to preface this.
Yes.
We have systems.
We're very systematic. You are very systematic. Yes.
Try.
Yeah.
But how he reined me in is he said that they had beat their numbers over last year.
Okay.
And so what he wanted to do is he wanted to have a party in downtown Indianapolis, and he wanted to get his entire agent count, and he wanted to go out and see how many free drinks they could get and see if they could get into the Indianapolis Star. And I thought, that sounds amazing. I'm going to work for you.
So, this is not an approved recruiting practice, and we do not endorse or condone that for anyone that's watching this or listening. But okay, that got you in.
It got me in.
There you go.
Yeah, in the grander scheme of things, I was looking for like a good environment, a work-life balance.
Change of scenery and
and all of that said that, hey, you could have this here. And I'm 6 months pregnant with Liam also at this point.
So do you think that if you wouldn't have been double booked, you would have gone to the Omni interview after that and taken the path that you know? You ever thought about that?
No, I've not. I know I haven't. I haven't thought about it, but maybe I would have.
There's a reason, you're double booked there.
Yeah.
Right. Just kind of steering you in that direction.
In the path that I'm
this
supposed to go.
This is where you need to go.
Yeah. And I agree. I think everything in your life happens to set you up for whatever it is that you're supposed to do. For sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, what was it like being a new agent with all this cake baking experience? Did that help you out, or are you? Because again, you're probably same thing as you're now. When you first came out of school, you got to run a business. You're doing something totally out of your comfort zone. So, how did that go, and how'd you overcome those challenges?
Well, so Mallory Radu was my agency director, and she obviously is an agency owner now, and she for whatever reason, just kind of took me under her wing. Maybe because she saw the potential that was there, but I didn't know that back then. And she was very guarded and protected over me, which was good because I was terrible. Okay, I was terrible. Terrible. Let me put that in perspective. I hired in November of 2012, and I did have a maternity leave in there, but I didn't close my first case until July of the next year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Terrible. But for whatever reason, Mallory just kind of sucked me in and wouldn't let me she was very encouraging.
So why are you staying where, because it's the culture is fun and you enjoy the people, but you're not making a lot of money. It's,
not at all.
It's putting a ton of pressure. You're about to have a child. You've got this whole career that you could go back in and make easy money essentially. Yeah. So why did you stick it out through that period?
Well, I had my parents' support, which was huge.
Yeah.
I think because I'm just such a peg-headed, determined person, my parents realized very young on that if they tell me not to do something, I'm going to do it just to spite them, which is good or bad. I don't know.
So they're telling you couldn't do this then?
No, they were very, very supportive. And sure. I don't know if that had a little bit to do with the why, but they were very supportive. So I knew, if I needed something, I had my parents.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah, for sure. There were times that they both helped me out tremendously throughout the journey. And there's no way that I would have been able to continue going if it wasn't for them.
Yeah.
But there was something just kind of innately in there that's always been there that said, you started this, you have committed to this, you're going to figure it out. And so again, it was just the mental choice of getting up every day, trying to get better every day. And eventually, and that's what I did. I just kept showing up. And eventually, things just started to click into place and I started to get better. But what it did was it kind of honed in my skills that I didn't know that I needed until I became an agency owner. I was sitting in a car thinking, what presentations have I given that I haven't closed? What full-time employees have I not seen? What business did I go to and enroll that I didn't see their part-time people because I can put them on individual?
Yeah.
It really made me think how, I'm at zero or whatever. How can I get over here? It really made me strategize, which is a skill that I need now.
Sure.
So I think it was just a choice. It was a mindset
pushed you
choice.
Out of your comfort zone, but into a place where you could learn and grow and become that
for sure
person.
Yeah.
So you start getting some success.
Yeah.
Right. You're moving up into the ranks. When did the idea of, hey, I think I want to take this to the next level, I want to be an agency owner, was being an agency owner always something you wanted to do? Kind of like how you wanted to be the general manager at Bob Evans, like I want to go.
What I want.
Yeah. Was that kind of always there, or were you just not?
No, not at all. I thought, well, I think I want to be an agency director.
Okay.
And then Mallory left in 2015 to open up her agency in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I think that for me was like, oh, I don't have to stay here. I can do something else.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't still very heavy in my mind. But then I started promoting agency directors. And then I became a regional agency director. And then in 2018, you called me and said, hey, you want to be an AO? And it wasn't the right timing for me then. We were planning the wedding of a century.
Yeah,
and
I remember. Yeah.
It was in 3 magazines, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Did you do the cake?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I did. Right. One of my friends that I went to college with did my cake.
Okay.
She's a business in South Carolina. But yeah, so the timing just wasn't right then. And there was a couple more things that I wanted to prove to myself before I took that. So could I have done it and been successful in 2018? Yes, I would have figured it out. Mm-hmm. I would have figured it out. But what I did during that time is I actually opened up Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Okay.
And I told myself, if I can get Fort Wayne going.
Brand new office, expansion office, get the whole thing, fill it up, get people and grow.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were living like an hour and a half away from Fort Wayne. I'm managing an Indianapolis team. I'm managing a Fort Wayne team. It's literally just me and Ashley whenever she's got time, because she's got her own team, right? Yeah. So whenever she's got time to come up and help me do interviews or, whatever. So I told myself, if I can get this thing up and running, I can get it profitable, I can recruit, I can pay the bills. I paid the rent.
Wow.
I can pay an assistant. I can make sure the lights are on, toilet paper. I mean, just little toilet paper, if I can get this going and if I can get my Fort Wayne team outriding my Indianapolis team, I'll feel pretty good.
You've proven you can be an agency owner because you've done it.
Because I've done it. I've done it once. I know I can go do it again. And so, I don't remember exactly whenever, I guess it was about 2018 whenever we opened up Fort Wayne, and COVID hit 2020, which actually ended up being my best year as a regional agency director. And that's the year that I made SEAL Team.
Okay. Why do you think COVID was your best year? What were the things that created that? Because there was certainly a challenge in the world during that.
I think for some strange reason, I thrive in challenging situations. I don't know if that's the greatest thing, but I don't know. Whenever the pressure's on me, that's whenever my wheels really start turning. And I think, okay, what can I do here? What presents haven't I closed? What AP haven't I written? Like I really start to dig deep and figure out, how am I not going to drown?
Do you think that maybe some of the work you've done in the year or two prior to that, growing a team, fortifying your systems, being very deliberate as a leader, helped you when something like that adversity showed up that no one was expecting?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I learned a lot as far as even just relationship building. Caitlin Walters is the agency director in Fort Wayne now. She's doing very, very well. And I got Caitlin at the end of 2019, I believe it was, in December. I trained with her in the field for maybe a month or two, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I have got to do whatever it is to hold on to this girl. Ashley tells me that I anacondaed her and just squeezed her in and didn't let her go. But I just knew, I don't know. I don't know if, the things that I had learned in the past, I had made this, she doesn't even know that I had made this promise to her, but I made this promise to her, I'm not letting you go anywhere, and whoever else we bring on with us, we're not going to let them go anywhere. So it all comes back to your choices. It was a choice.
Sure. Well, that's great. So then now we're getting down. We're like, okay, we're ready to, there are some changes in your agency. There were some challenges, some things that were going on. And at this time, you're saying, hey, I think now's the time.
Yeah. So I knew. So SEAL Team happened. We go to Arizona. What was that? In February, I think.
Yeah.
And, you're in SEAL Team, and whoever says, maybe Luke, who wants to be an AO. So I raised my hand because I knew that I did. I just didn't know timeframes. And so you and I had kind of sat down maybe that night or the last night. We were talking a little bit, and you said, well, what's your timeline? And I said, well, I think maybe within the next 2 years or so. For me, I wanted to prove some more things to myself, I guess.
Yeah.
And you said, well, I'll put you in bullpen whenever you're closer to maybe a year, 6 months, something like that. And I said, okay. So then we go to convention about May, June. Some of these changes are happening. Yeah. So there's some adversity. There's some things going on. And I knew in May I wanted to be an AO immediately. So Michaela Whitaker was a trainer at that time, right? And sorry, D now. And I called her because you and I have always had a really good relationship. But at that moment, you're this God over here that I should call or not call. Can I call? Can I talk to him? You know what I mean? There's levels. As an SA, and your relationship grows with you.
Where do you follow the hierarchy?
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So we weren't quite there yet. So I call Michaela and I said, hey, I really want to tell Mike that I want to be an AO, but like, I don't know when, I don't know how. Like, do I just call? Do I text him? Like, what do I do? Like, what's respectful? Like, I have no idea. Like, way overthinking. I told you I like a list.
Sure.
So she says, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you wait until August, whenever you guys do your SEAL team meeting, go through SEAL team meeting, and at the end of SEAL team meeting, because somebody's going to bring it up.
Sure.
When they bring it up, then you say, hey, I'm ready. And so that's exactly what I did. It was in August. It was the last day. We did it over Zoom because of COVID.
Yeah, it got canceled. It was Tahoe, right?
Tahoe,
we're supposed to go like Tahoe.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I literally shut my laptop and I texted you and said, I'm ready.
It's time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then less than 6 months
later, we were in an office.
U-Haul on the way to Phoenix.
Yeah.
Right? So, obviously a lot of things that happened in your life that gave you the confidence of, I'm going to pack up and move.
Yep.
You're going to go to a brand new market. Why Phoenix? What was it? Just the weather, or did you have people down there, or what was the?
No, we don't know anybody. I know Globe Life. They're my friends at Globe Life. We're just very adventurous people. Of course, the weather. I knew that I wanted to be somewhere warm. I hated how cold it was in Indianapolis. I hated the snow. I don't like
Midwest winters are tough.
Oh, they're brutal.
Yeah.
They're brutal. I knew that I wanted to go somewhere, somewhere warm. I think that you would agree with me that my office is very diverse. I have a very diverse group of people. So I knew that I needed to also go somewhere that was going to be pretty accepting, right? Yeah. So maybe the Deep South might not be the best place for me to go. And then demographically, Phoenix ranks 8th in the country as far as new businesses and businesses that are there. So that kind of logistically made sense, but it also fits our lifestyle. We're very outdoorsy people. We like to hike. We like to travel. You've got, we were just in California over the weekend. It's right there. You've got, Mexico, which we love going down to. Everything is just kind of right there. All of the things that we like to do. So it made sense to go to Phoenix.
So you open up, it's you and how many people?
It's me and I want to say 6 people maybe. Yeah. Okay. One of which has never worked for me before.
Just like a brand new hire?
Yeah. So my QM is actually Ashley's mom. So she quit her job of 25 years.
Wow.
Left the only home that she's ever known in Ohio to pack up and move with us to be our QM.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It's good to have that support system.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So what was that beginning period as a new agency owner like? Challenges, I'm sure, things that you didn't expect.
Yeah.
And how did you get through that?
Well, I'm going to go back to Indy for just a minute.
Okay.
One of the biggest challenges that I faced that I don't even know that I've told you about that I did not expect is what that transition piece was going to be like. There was so much ownership in that office for me and for Ashley too.
In Indianapolis?
That when we left, it was like your heart being like ripped out of your chest. It was awful.
And this time there's a new AO coming in.
Yeah.
And Natalie, she's doing fantastic.
Yeah, for sure.
She's been on the podcast as well. She's doing a great job there, but this is someone coming over and kind of, here's my child, and now you're taking them and we're moving.
And the thing is, Natalie and I were just on SEAL team together. So we were pretty decent friends. Whenever you called her, I think I was one of the first calls from her. Hey, what do you think? So, there was a lot of love there for Natalie. The day that she came in, that first agency meeting, you came as well. Mm-hmm. You left, and then she held a
Embassy
dinner.
Suites.
The Embassy Suites.
Yeah.
She had held a dinner for everybody for like the leadership team. And so Ashley and I, of course, went, and there was like a very apparent just shift, right? Like this is a new beginning, like not a bad shift. It is what needed to happen. It was a change, but it was a shift. And Ashley and I, she drove that night to dinner, and we sat in her car. We did not speak to each other the entire drive home, and we just sat there just sobbing. Both of us just in tears. That is something that I was not prepared for. I was not prepared for what it was going to feel like to walk away from that agency.
So that feeling was rooted in just leaving that agency.
I mean, I was there for 9 years. There was, clients and just everything that I had learned.
Your heart and soul.
Life was there.
Poured into it.
I was not prepared for that. Not prepared for that. Okay. So transitioning into, Phoenix, I just threw absolutely everything that I had into it. I'm a very visual, this needs done, this needs done, this needs done. And that's what I did. I took it, compartmentalized it, and just started attacking whatever it was that needed to be done just as quick as I could.
Yeah, it seems like this is a common theme in your life that you were jumping in full throttle into something way outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And you're just going all in. You're not going to half it. You're not going to, let's try it and see.
Yeah.
We're going to commit. The ships are burned. There's no
going to figure it out.
Going back. There's no plan B. So how outside of your comfort zone was becoming an agency owner after you had done it? Maybe you didn't think it would be and it was, or what was that?
I wasn't too uncomfortable, actually.
Okay.
I think that Fort Wayne really set me up to what to expect. Sure. I was nervous.
Yeah.
For sure, I was nervous.
You got a lot on the line.
There's a lot on the line, for sure. And being in Indy for so long, I mean, I was there for 9 years. If you close one case a week over the course of 9 years, your book of business is really kind of stacked, right? So I had a very nice cushion in Indianapolis.
Got to take some of the pressure off.
Takes a lot of the pressure off, to going to nothing.
Yeah.
And we were a scratch office. There was no re-enrollments. There was no dead cases. There was no case.
Zero.
There was nothing. Yeah. Nothing.
Go, figure it out. Rent's due on the 1st.
Yep. $5,000. Have fun. Yeah, absolutely. And that was another change was, yes, I was managing those bills in Fort Wayne, but Phoenix naturally alone is about 3 times more than Indianapolis. Yeah. So that was an adjustment.
Cost of living.
Yeah, for sure. It was scary, manageable, but scary. So
what do you do in that moment of fear where it's, that's where the uncomfort is coming from.
Yeah.
How do you manage that internally and then get the result?
You got to block it out. I mean, you got to block it. You can't breathe life into it because if you breathe life into it, whatever you're telling yourself is what's going to happen. So you've got to put up that mental block. You've got to put up that wall and you have to attack the situation. Before I moved out, I had my team go out about 2 weeks earlier. I wanted to come out with a bang. I wanted to make sure my first week we had premiums up. So my team went out 2 weeks beforehand. They closed 2 cases. We couldn't even send them in yet. We didn't even have a number. We didn't even know our agency number.
There's a long processing period here. We'll just let you know. We'll be back in
hold on
weeks.
to that. Yeah. Hold on to that. So we opened on the 15th of March, got my agency number. We sent those cases up immediately, had the enrollment day, and my first week we threw up $12,000. So,
I remember that.
Yeah. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I thought, okay, my first week, $12,000, we just have to do it again.
Yeah.
Just have to do it again.
So all that preparation and mindset and not embracing the negative, but embracing the path.
Yeah.
Is what got you through that.
And I relied so heavily on the systems.
Yeah.
I relied so heavily on what people were telling me was going to work. There was no reason for me to not trust anyone. There was no reason for me to say, well, Mike told me this and well, it didn't work. I had no reason. I never worked with home office to that extent before. So I quite literally put every ounce of my trust into the people that were backing me up and just did the systems and it worked out just fine.
Here it is.
Here it is.
Here you are.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what an amazing story. So many moments and things that carry with you. And I just appreciate you coming on here and sharing it with everybody.
Thank you.
And letting us get a little bit more insight into to who you are and what made you who you are.
Oh, thank you.
So thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Before we're done, we have a tradition.
I'm so excited.
On the Level Up Lifestyle podcast. It is your bobblehead.
Yay.
Normally we're filming upstairs in the studio. And so we'll have there's a bookcase that has all the bobbleheads of of our prior guests. We didn't bring it down here. It's a lot of, the heads. It's a lot of moving.
Sure. That's a lot.
Yeah, a lot to do that. But we do have yours down here, and you're going to have one to take home, and we're going to have one that's going to sit behind the set for all of the shows in the future. So here it is. This is your official Level Up Lifestyle bobblehead.
That did.
Congratulations.
Did it.
Pretty good, huh? Yeah? You guys notice the resemblance?
And that is my favorite dress. It is my favorite. It's my favorite
Really?
dress. Yeah, the gold one, Jen knows.
Wow, Jen.
Dude, you're amazing.
Jen's in the bed. She did a great job.
You did. Look at those heels. I think I have on the same color.
It's close. Okay. So, last question. Kind of looking at who you are today. This bobblehead represents everything you've gone through in your life to get to this point. If you were to go back, knowing what you know now, to that day where you're double booked,
yeah,
right? You're going to the Omni or you're going to Liberty National, and just getting started. If you could give yourself advice based on your experience up until this point, what would you tell yourself?
That it is worth it, that it is going to be hard. It's going to be the hardest thing that you've ever done. There are going to be days that you want to quit. There are going to be days that you cry. There are going to be days that you hate it. There are going to be days that you don't want to get out of bed. But you just keep going, because eventually, everything that you want will come into fruition. So just keep going.
So good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Give it up for Stephanie, everybody. All right.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this episode has inspired you on your path to success. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. See you soon on the Level Up Lifestyle Podcast.